of Taj Bengal, a warm welcome. As you know, the Authors Afternoon is brought to you by Prabha Khaitan Foundation, by Shree Cement, and of course Telegraph T2 and Taj Bengal. Today we have Ravi Subramanian. What can one say about him? He starts off with an IIM degree, then goes on to write If God Was a Banker, which gives him international acclaim, and then has the Wall Street Journal saying about him, calling him the John Grisham of banking. So what more can one add? I would say if one had to add something, it would be in Shakespeare's words, the elements so mixed in him that nature might stand up and say to the world, this was a man. We have this conversation with him today, Arindam, who everybody knows in Bengal, and noted filmmaker, actor. And so let's have a great afternoon, all of us together. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. And I was telling Ravi, I put all my mobiles on silent. I have an array of mobile phones. I'll put them all on silent. I think Ravi has also done that. Thank you. So I was telling Ravi that as this whole session is called, it's called chat session. I detest the word chat being a Bengal. I prefer it being called Atta. Like Atta is so much informal and more intellectual. Ravi, I had the honor of launching his book in Kolkata for the first time. After that, we became kind of friends. I've read a few of his books. We'll come to that a bit later. But he's a master storyteller. Any one of you who've read him would agree to this. His books, thrillers, mainly on banking. I've read somewhere that you would love to be remembered as the John Grisham of banking. And we'll come to that later. But before that, Ravi, Ravi, the name by itself, it's quite a common name. No? Every second person on earth can be called Ravi. Whether you like your name or you would love to change your name. I know. You won't have to answer. I'll answer. I think that given a choice of changing your name, you would name yourself Aditya.
You're referring to Aditya, the character in this particular book.
Why this particular book?
You know, all my books have a character called Aditya, so I guess that's why he's saying this. But yeah, Aditya is a name I like.
And I can tell you, if you ever think of a Bengali character, you can still name him Aditya. Because
Aditya is a very banker kind of name. It's got a very stylish appeal, and I guess that's what I liked in that name. But no, people don't have a choice on the name. So I think people who like the names are happy that the parents gave them that name. People who are not happy, blame them, but you can't do much about it. My formal name is not Ravi Subramanian. Okay. Typically in South Indians, you have this concept of, you know,
names after your lines.
Yeah, you're named after your grandfather, and you know, the first son gets the paternal grandfather's name, the second son gets the maternal grandfather's name. So I'm the second son, so I got my maternal grandfather's name. Subramanian is my first name, okay. And my father's name was Jambuna. So my actual name is J. Subramanian. Not Ravi Subramanian. But the typical problem in South Indian families is you name a child, give the child a grandfather's name, you can't call him by that name. Okay? Because if your grandfather's in the same house, then you don't know who you are calling, right? So and Subramanian can't be called Subbu because it would be disrespectful to the older man. And so I was called Ravi, and that name stuck. And all through school, people call me Ravi, and so. At one point in time, it started becoming so difficult to explain to people that, look, my name is not Ravi, my name is J. Subramanian, that's my formal name. And so much so that in Citibank, you have this concept of debates happening at the time of promotions. And you put up, everybody puts up names, and then you have people debating saying, okay, should this guy be promoted, should that guy be promoted? So the entire management committee debates. So my name came up for debate. Nobody put their hand up to fight for the promotion. Okay. And then suddenly somebody looked at my boss and said, look, he's your guy. Okay. And said, no, I don't have a Ravi Subramanian working for me. And that's when it started becoming, I realized what a conflict it's creating. So when I started writing a book, I said, okay, it's got to be Ravi Subramanian. That's it.
But Ravi, when it comes to writing fiction, literature, Ravindranath, it's good.
Well,
it's good to have a name. But in fact, Ravi and myself have a lot of things in common. We have one wife, one daughter. And he has a management background. I have a management background. He's taken to writing. I've taken to films. And yeah, I was into NBFC. He now is a CEO of a leading NBFC in this country. He's based in Mumbai. His daughter is extremely creative, and she is one of the youngest writers, acknowledged writers. She wrote her first book at the age of 12, and here at 16, she is being sought after by Bengal. And my daughter is into designing, graphic designing and all. And she's quite a sought after designer also. So,
and both of them created, if you say it's the genes.
Yeah. And both our wives hold positions of directors in their company. So there will be a lot of sorrows common sorrows to discuss also later. I mean, anyway, so coming to facing questions, you are now quite a rock star writer. Ravi Subramanian is a name, come on, you have to accept it. There are very few Indian writers who kind of make it for a living, doing so. You're one of them. And, extremely happy and proud to have a friend like you. And so you have to answer a lot of questions everywhere. How is it like answering the same set of questions everywhere? Do you have same set of answers, or are you a moody person, your answers vary on moods?
The answers, the content remains the same by and large, because the thought process doesn't change much. But yes, often the questions tend to be very similar, and I've actually been in sessions where my fellow authors crack jokes which are also very similar. Okay, so you go on to the video and look at 5 different video interviews, and you could actually make a trend. All of them sound the same. But having said that, no, this particular discussion, you start off on a very different note. So nobody started off a discussion ever asking me, whether I want to change my name. So it's the first time I've been asked this question.
Actually, the first time in this whole series of authors after me, I've got a chance to come up here. Otherwise, I would always say.
So the first time somebody asked me if my name, if I like Aditya as a name, and so I think this interview promises to be very different. But by and large, if you go to
I'll ask you a set question to start off with.
No problem. The only good thing about these interviews, they will put you back on the back foot to start with. The only good thing about these discussions is people might criticize you and your books behind your back, but in these kind of interviews, no, people are always nice to you. So I think that's.
They come and take selfies also. What does it feel like? Like somebody very unknown to you, but you know that that person is a promising reader of yours, would jump onto you and say, "Sir, let's take a selfie."
I make 2 points here. One, it's embarrassing. Unless you're the Prime Minister of the country, it becomes very embarrassing. And 2, I think authors are not superstars in this country.
Come on.
Okay. Let me. And I have a very, very strong view on this. I think
so. But your author, Aditya, he's a superstar. He's a rock star.
He's a rock star as a writer. I think authors today somewhere have the line between a reader and a fan has kind of blurred. Okay. And the day an author starts considering his readers as fans, I think that's the beginning of the end. Because you have to realize that the person who you consider a fan is not your fan, is a fan of your writing. So it's not you, it's your writing. You need to make that differentiation. And the day you make the differentiation, you will be a fairly at peace person.
But again, on a lighter note, if the person who's asking for a selfie has a bad breath,
That's okay, doesn't matter. He's going to go away in 10 seconds, right? So it's fine.
okay, so what actually took you to writing? Did you get into the habit of writing right from your childhood, like your daughter, or you grew up?
In fact, one of my biggest critics in school was my English teacher. She once went and told a close friend of mine that stay away from these bad company. Okay, that was my English teacher at school.
That was because of your bad writing?
No, it was not because of bad writing, but as a person, I was very notorious. And I once even threw ink on my maths teacher. So I studied in a convent school where I got 3 pink cards and 2 green cards. Third green card got me out of school.
Which school was
This was a school called Sacred Heart Convent School in Luther. And
so you are more of a Panju, despite being...
I'm a Punjab. I'm not a South Indian. And Ravi Subramanian is to mislead people and give them an impression of a very intellectual person. So, but I'm actually a Punjab. But yes, the biggest critic of mine was the English teacher, and I never. If even during my IIM days, somebody told me, Ravi, you would end up writing 8 books that have been thus far, I would have not. Okay, and written the guy off as one guy. But somewhere around the aspiration grew, and the reason for the aspiration was I saw that as a banker, as a professional, as a power in corporate life, people tend to forget you very fast. Artists are remembered longer than corporate professionals.
No, but correct me if I'm wrong, my personal, many of the experience of artists would be, you're only remembered till you're worth it.
Correct.
You know, that's why...
Correct, I agree. But the thought which was in my mind was, long after you're dead and gone, there will be some book somewhere in some library which will remind people that there was an author called Ravi Subramanian. But long after you're dead and gone, nobody's going to remember a banker called Ravi Subramanian. Right? So that was the reason why I wanted to write a book. Very, very basic, very, very personal.
That's a lovely way of looking at it.
And that's why I wrote my first book. At that point in time, I only wanted to write one book. That's it. But
you never knew that you would end up writing so many books.
But somewhere down the line, Equal was a banker, which was my first book. Kind of happened a bit too easily. I wrote it over. I started writing when my wife was away traveling on a vacation, not on a vacation, on a training program. She was training the management trainings at Citibank, and I had 1 month taking care of my 6-year-old daughter, so I couldn't go out anywhere. So I started writing at night, and
So you took to writing. Sorry, you took to writing after you got married.
I took to writing when I was 36.
Want to?
So my first book, and before that, I would probably have written those quirky teenage poems which you normally write,
to impress your
girlfriends and all. But beyond that, nothing. So for me, the real serious effort at writing fiction was required as a writer. The book went on to become a success.
Yes.
And because the book went on to become a success, it kind of made it real.
He also has written another book, if you know. He sold the monk.
I bought the monks for
I
bought the monks for
I bought the monks for
which is a reference to Robin Sharma's book of.
And then, of course, he went on with his banker thriller series, Bankrupt and Bestseller She Wrote.
Okay.
You love cricket?
Yes, sir.
Are you a defensive batsman?
It depends on the pitch.
So let's say that the pitch remains the same, or I think it has remained the kind of same when it comes to your writing. That you've been writing thrillers. Now you have this recent book of yours, the Bestseller She Wrote, which is kind of a love story. Otherwise I would have ended up asking you, hadn't you written this book, that are you going to keep on writing thrillers? But then what happens, I see, is that your premises remain the same. Like, I am your banking, they remember it. Do you love?
Can I take a couple of minutes to answer this?
Yeah.
Okay. There was a time when I started writing banking thrillers, when there was nobody writing books in this space. I was the only one writing books in this space. The Wall Street Journal just happened to call me the Grisham of banking. I loved it. You know, anybody would love it.
Of course.
But somewhere down the line, I felt that was probably becoming too much of a baggage. So it was putting too much pressure on you to continue writing banking thrillers, to continue writing books in the world of banking, to continue writing books which are highly banking dominated. Now that comes with its own set of problems. The set of problems are, one, your reader base gets limited. You know, banking is a very intimidating subject. So a lot of people who are not interested in banking, even though the books don't have banking in that, don't require you to understand banking so deeply, people still won't stay away from it. A large chunk of reader base who read a lot of other subjects like romance, mythology, would not pick up, and would even pick up a thriller, would get intimidated by a banking thriller. Because the word banking itself puts off a lot of people. And two, I also started feeling that an author who kind of boxes himself in a genre is not doing justice to his craft. Because at the end of the day, a good author means a good storyteller. You have to be a good storyteller, and you must have the ability to tell this good story in every single field that you write. And because of that, I challenged myself. I said, let me try and write something different. But having said that, you already had a loyal reader base, right? You already had a segment of people who read you, and giving them something completely different without even giving them a notice, and then they picking up your book assuming it's a banking thriller, and not turning out to have even 1% story set in the bank.
That's exactly what happened to me when I picked up this book. And I said, oh Lord, he's writing on something different.
Correct. So that's the reason why there is still a certain element of banking in this book. It's the bestseller She Wrote.
A lot of banking, wealth management and asset management, a whole lot of things.
But that's a story which is, but if you look at read the story, the banking bit is pretty much irrelevant. As in, it's there to just progress the story, but beyond that, it is
all different.
Yeah. It's a story, the new book, The Bestseller She Wrote, is a story about two authors. It's a story about India's #1 author and his liaison with a younger 23, 24-year-old management trainee who wants to become an author. So how she uses him to become a bestseller is what the story is all about. Now, there's also another reason why the banking element is there. The other reason why the banking element is there is because if you look at the entire Indian writing scenario, Indian writing landscape, most of the best-selling authors are bankers. Most of the best-selling authors are IIM graduates. So if I'm writing a book about the #1 best-selling author in the country, I can't stay away from an IIM or a banking background. So I have to necessarily, build them, and that's why it appears in the story. Part defensiveness on my part to completely move away, but partly also because, as filmy people like you would say, the story demanded it.
Now, when it comes to a book being written and thereafter, like in this age of consumerism, when we make a film, nowadays we say, 25% हुआ है, अभी बाकी पूरा बाकी है. We have to market the film. I mean, that's becomes so very important. So you consider your books as products. You know what I'm hinting.
How many of you are okay with books being promoted the way they are promoted today? Not okay. Do you think they're too aggressive?
No, I think only Shashi Tharoor's books are aggressively
Promoted.
promoted.
But what about the new age commercial fiction writers?
It also evokes a lot of interest. It tells you about whether or not you want to pick up a book.
Okay, good. Now let me answer this question. About 2 years back, I was at a lit fest in Chennai, and I had a very heated argument with another best-selling author on stage, and because that best-selling author turned around and said that, look, books are divine, books come from within me, so I will never treat a book like a product. Okay, so they are very special, very divine. I agree with most of the stuff that she said, but then if a book is not a product, why do you put a price tag on it and put it on the bookshelves? You know, the day you put a price tag on it and put it on the bookshelves for readers to buy and read, it becomes a product. And that was a discussion I had.
If I may interrupt just for a sec, is that the line which just came out of Ravi's mouth just now are the same lines with which Aditya says in this book. So that was one of the reasons why I asked this question.
And so I had that argument. At the end of it, my view was that when you write a book, it is not a product. It's your own creative output. It's divine to you at that point in time. But once you finish writing a book, you must go out and market it with a passion, the way you market a product. So there's nothing wrong in you treating a book like a product once it's ready, once it's produced. Now, this discussion which I had in Chennai with the author during Hindu Lit Fest, that forms the first chapter of this book, the Bestseller She Wrote. The Bestseller She Wrote, the Aditya, who is the India's #1 selling author, meets this girl at IIM Bangalore in one of the events where he goes to talk, and has the same discussion. She asks him a question. He says the book is a product, and the woman says something which is completely derogatory, and then they have a discussion on it. So that's how I brought that Lit Fest into my book. So most of the stuff that I wrote in that chapter actually happened, and if you go on YouTube for Hindu Lit for Life, Ravi Subramanian, you'll actually find this video where it was very. It is an interesting discussion. Me, Ashwin Sanghi, and one more author. And the problem was, me and Ashwin Sanghi both believe extremely, believe a lot in marketing a book once it's ready. And this other author,
Frankly, I don't see any harm. Why wouldn't you
absolutely, why wouldn't you? You don't write a book to put on the bookshelves and not to be sold. You write a book because you want more people to read it.
In the same way, I would make a film, and I want that many of the people would be knowing that I've made this film is running in the house. And so I market aggressively.
And Arindam, today the problem is there are thousands of good books being produced, but none of them are being read because nobody knows the
Coming to this, may I ask something about Indian readers? Do you think that most of Indian readers, they are opinionated about Indian writers without even reading their books?
It's unfair. You are reading my book and asking me questions from that book. Well, again, in the book, the Aditya speaks to someone and says that a lot of Indian readers have opinions about Indian authors without even form an opinion without even reading the books. I think that's a fact. It's a bit of a hangover of India's #1 author and who came out with his books in 2007. A lot of people tend to look at Indian authors in a very colored way, and many of them read an Indian author and then they like it. You look at reviews, okay, and hunt for reviews for most of the Indian authors, and you'll find many of the reviews starting with a single line. I normally don't read Indian authors, but I picked up this book.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I loved it. Okay. Now, what does that show? That shows that Indian authors have a negative predisposition Indian readers have a negative predisposition towards many Indian authors. Not to say that everybody, but many of them have. And I typically find this in the snobbish literary circuit, where they don't even read the literary books. Okay, but it's good to talk about a foreign author, but it's a bit not that cool to talk about an Indian author. That's changing with a lot of Indian authors' books being sold, and with Indian authors dominating the bestseller charts.
Yes, of course.
But it'll take some time. it's a bit of a colonial hangover that we have. Really go.
So if there has been one question which you wanted to be asked but have not been asked, what would that be and what would you answer to that?
No, I would rather say which has never been asked. Can you put it that
Okay,
way?
never been asked.
Rather than wanted to be asked.
Okay, never been asked.
The only question which I've never been asked is when in hell will you stop writing?
Oh, yeah, you just started. Why would anybody ask you that? Really pray that we don't do that. Nobody ever comes up with that question. Keep on writing. Let me tell you, once again I'm saying that I've read quite a few of his books and I have loved them. But I'm just liking and loving this book. And the Bestseller She Wrote. And we part here with a promise that we made back home. And in fact, you could name him Aditya. I was talking about a concept of a film which came up in my mind day before yesterday, and Ravi lapped it up and he loved the concept and he said that he wants to author a book on that. So that would be one of the biggest kind of gift that
The story that he narrated to me in brief was a fabulous story, and in fact it has all the elements of romance, of thriller, of extramarital affairs, of suspense. You know, it's got everything. So it's like a complete package.
I really hope that we work on this, Ravi. Thank you so much, and you can name him Aditya. I would love.
Absolutely.
It was a lovely discussion. Having you here, we can have some questions here.
Yeah.
3, if not more.
Ravi, I don't think we need a mic. You talked about writing because you wanted to be remembered.
Okay.
And you are a banker, certainly not something glamour is associated with. I mean, even Naina Lal Kidwai couldn't do that.
Okay.
So as a writer, a lot of writers are becoming stars today. Do you think that adds an extra dimension of maybe respect or interest in you as a banker? People are a little more in awe, or do they think that you're not quite serious about your work if you're also writing?
Interesting question. I think what typically happens when you become a writer is that it adds a amount of intellectual glamour to your personality.
Okay.
And I think that's something which kind of becomes a conversation starter. Okay, when you don't, it opens more doors for you, and people do talk to you. People come and tell you stories. Okay, you don't need to go looking out for stories. So it does add to your personality as a banker. And two bankers are not as dry as you think they are. Banking is a very, very glamorous field. If you actually are in it, it's very glamorous. And to the other point, I think Naina Lal Kidwai did had a lot of people. But yeah, I think yeah, people do respect you and value you more because you're. But you also have certain set of people who grudge you the success. You have sometimes you tend to become more popular than your boss, and that becomes a bit of a problem. In fact, that prompted me once to write a column in the newspaper saying, "Never buy a car bigger than your boss's." So it's, I guess it's got both pluses and minuses. But in the final analysis, I think I'm very happy with the process.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is addressing the whole question of marketing, aggressive marketing versus. So traditionally, it was the publisher who actually was meant to market, while the writer was meant to actually focus on producing the work, right? Now what is increasingly happening is the publishers actually building marketing into contracts, where they are making you sort of sign that you will market yourself through social media, that you will be available for certain marketing tours. How do you as a writer feel? Would you like to preserve the choice of how much you wish to market, or do you feel it's fine to be tied down to these kinds of?
I just have one response to that, and that is that the author is the CEO of his book.
Okay.
I say that with a lot of thought because For you, that's the only book. That's a matter of life and death. For a publisher, it's one thing. So a publisher will tend to say, okay, isko bhi nikalo, put this book out. Especially if you're a new author. For an established author, the demand is already there. So the publisher, if he does not support his marketing, he is an idiot. But for a new author, nobody really spends that kind of money in marketing. No publisher ever will spend that kind of money. Take the same example, 5,000 copies if it sells. How much will a publisher also make? A publisher will also make 50,000 to a lakh. Right? So where is the money for him to 2 tickets for 2 launches for you will add up to a lakh. So how will you promote your book? So I would tend to say that if you are an author who wants to be in this field for long, for a few years, or write more books, treat it like a business. Not the writing process, but the marketing. Treat it like a business. In a business, the money that you make in the first 2 years, you reinvest. You probably put some of your own money back into the business and build that business so that you start getting the benefits from the 3rd, 4th, 5th year onwards. Similarly, when you write the first book, put the money back. Invest in the marketing, invest in PR, invest in distribution, do deals yourself. Make sure when you have when it's a first book, a publisher will not give you a good editor. Will either give you a part-time editor or probably give you the junior most editor. Make sure that you hire your own editor and bring the book up to a particular standard. I did that mistake. I didn't have a good editor for my first book. And you see the difference, quality of the first and the last book is quite huge. And the editor makes a huge difference to the quality of the book. So I think my only answer to that is an author is the CEO of his book who has to take charge of everything from marketing, production, distribution, and visibility. Awards for free.
You take 2 last questions, Shreya and Shreya, that's all.
Shreya?
Shreya and Shreya.
The heroine in my book is called Shreya.
Shisha, not Shreya. No, my question was, if you had to pick one of your books to make a movie out of,
It's the same question.
Well, let me answer
or is
for
one
you.
in production already?
This particular book which is written, he's already sold the film rights.
The Bestseller She Wrote has already been sold to a production house. It's already underway. So for the end of 2017 or end of 2016 or early 2017, it's something.
And it's a Hindi Bollywood movie or parallel cinema? What kind of
This one will be an out-and-out commercial movie.
Yeah.
It's got all the elements that you need in a commercial. It's got all the elements. It's got romance. It's got suspense, intrigue, sex. It's got everything. So I think it leaves scope for everything that.
Now that Arindam has become a director, and he's so fascinated with Aditya, so my question would have been very similar. That because Indian people they put a lot of audience for visual media, and usually we've got a lot of books becoming into super hit films. So which, if you don't mind telling, that out of all the books you've written, which book would be that one entertainment movie which will do?
Which will do fabulous as a movie. To my mind, the best movieable book, okay, there's a word like that, of mine would probably be If God Was a Man. My first book. Yeah. It's a fabulous story. It's a story of good versus bad, okay, and how the good wins over the evil in the end. So it's got everything right from conflict between two friends, career, ambition, lust, and conflict resolution in the end, where the good wins over evil. So it's got complete masala for a
movie.
You want to produce it?
If you're directing, because you're so fascinated with Aditya, you just got your heart in that.
Aditya is the bar in that book.
Yeah.
No questions from you?
No.
Yeah, can I call Miss Sangeeta Datta to now present this?
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Really enjoyed it. That belongs to the city.
What's that?
And I'm suspecting which Aditya got your imagination.
You worked with Celia?
My husband does.
Oh, yeah.
Really enjoyed that.
Thank you. So there are copies of the book you can pick up, and Ravi would be too happy to oblige you with an autograph.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. And
I'm
thanks
still
everyone.
around. Enjoy it.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Sandeep, for having me here.
Thanks for coming. He did morning, evening because his engagements yesterday and tomorrow both. So he's still in the morning and going back straight away to the event. So thank you so much.